welcome to the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I am Asif Badi, and everybody in Philadelphia heard the Adam Schefter report, heard the NBC Philadelphia report that Vic Fangio is all but signed, sealed, and delivered to be the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. The guy, the one that got away, the guy who was supposed to be the coordinator this year. If it weren't for John Gannon and the tampering charges, right? Everyone in Philadelphia right now is happy, excited. They feel there's hope for this defense once again. And let's talk about it. There's some good things that come with this. It's a voice that everybody in the locker room, everyone in the front office, and Nick Sirianni is going to respect. It's a scheme that, as much as I hate it, it's a scheme that everyone in the locker room, for the most part, is familiar with. Languages will be the same. Assignments are not going to be that much different than what it was a couple of years ago. So he should seamlessly walk in and be able to take command of the defensive huddle as he understands the dynamics in the locker room and within the organization. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But we're going to focus on Vic Fangio. Is this a good hire? Is this the hire that we need to get the defense right? Listen, anything is better than what we just saw in Philadelphia this past season. But I need to say that I am a little underwhelmed by the hire of Vic Fangio. I am. And I'm not to say that I don't think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think he's a great defensive mind. He's well respected in the league. But will it really fix the issues on defense, is my question. One thing's for damn sure is that guys are not going to be misplaced in assignments. I think he's going to get these guys to be able to play football, unlike what happened with Desai and Matt Patricia. But again, it feels underwhelming to me. And I guess the thinking is over there that there's nowhere to go but up on the defensive side of the ball. So why not get a guy that we know in the building? And it's funny because I was actually going to make an episode on some of the coordinators that I thought were going to be good for Philadelphia. And some of the criteria that I wanted to look for in a coordinator was a guy who's not going to be able to get a head coaching job. Kind of like the dynamic that's happening in Kansas City right now with Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. He was so bad with the Rams, Spagnuolo. Not that he was bad, not that he's a bad coach, but his stint with the Rams was not great. And it's almost deterred other teams to hire him as a head coach. And thus, he's been the coordinator in Kansas City throughout Patrick Mahomes' career. They're one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in football today. And all of that has to be given credit towards Steve Spagnuolo and the way they construct that roster. I wanted something similar in that dynamic where we have a coach who's good enough as a coordinator, but bad enough to not be a head coach. Kind of like what McVay had with Wade Phillips when they went to the Super Bowl. Same idea. So kind of like Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. He had a bad stint with the Broncos and ended up being with Brady for another 7 to 8 year run. We have that in Vic Fangio. He'll bring continuity to the defense. He'll bring a singular voice. And if you look at the numbers what Miami did last year when he was coordinating the defense, they were 11th in points allowed. Yards per play, they were ranked 9th in the NFL. They were ranked 7th against the run overall, allowing only 100 yards rushing per game, which is not bad. They were 15th against the pass at 224 yards a game. And in terms of sack percentage, the quarterback sack percentage, they were ranked number 2 in the NFL. So in that sense, you're looking at that and you're saying, wow, what a huge upgrade that would be as defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, because these are not numbers that we are associated with after this past year. But mind you, let me tell you the teams that the Miami Dolphins played against, okay? These are against the likes of New England twice a year, Denver early on when they stunk. You got the Giants, who they only allowed 16 points to. Carolina, they played the Raiders, who don't have an offense. The New York Jets, who we know don't have an offense. The Washington Commanders, while yes, they lit up the Eagles, it's not an offense that necessarily gives you cause for pause or that gives you hesitancy. It doesn't make you scared. They played Tennessee, who they allowed 27 points, who they lost to actually, 28-27. They played the Jets once again, allowing a 0-piece. They held Dallas to 20, and we saw what Green Bay just did to Dallas in the playoffs. They got their ass kicked by Baltimore, and then they played the Buffalo Bills, who they, lost once again to. So you saw those quarterbacks, you saw those teams, and they're not the greatest form of competition. And even the teams that they lost to were all teams that were good quarterbacks. Buffalo twice a year. Baltimore. They lost to Tennessee, who is a bit of an anomaly in that sense in terms of the quarterback discussion. They lost to Philly, 31-17, and then they lost to Kansas City. So, to me, are the defensive stats really accurate? Because all those teams that they played against, it was clear, for the most part, that the team could not function or keep up with these guys. And in some of those games, the defense actually played well, so I'll have to give credit to that. But are these numbers Fugazi? Quite possibly. Are they Fugazi enough to deter Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni to potentially bringing this guy in? Obviously not, as he's most likely going to land a deal and be the coordinator for Philadelphia. So am I happy that Desai and Patricia are gone? Absolutely. Am I happy that Vic Fangio is going to be the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia? I'm not upset by it, but I still think we could have done better. But hey, the organization, Nick Sirianni, they have a certain system that they want to implement here, and this fits their system. This fits the scheme that they want. So congratulations to us Philadelphia Eagle fans. Congratulations to Coach Fangio, as he's going to be the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia for this upcoming season. Let's shift gears now. I record this on, the day before it's released. So tonight, right now, I'm recording this on the 24th. I released it on the 25th. I watched the press conference with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman about their exit interviews and how the season ended, etc., etc., etc. And let me tell you something, guys. As Eagle fans, or even anybody on the outside looking in, did that press conference give you any assurance or any vote of confidence for Nick Sirianni this upcoming year? Did it make you look at the team dynamics that exist with Howie Roseman, the front office, and the coaching staff? I know for me it did. Looking at Sirianni and how he orchestrated himself on the microphone, it looked like a guy whose confidence has been broken. A guy who's been through it. And on the other hand, you look at Howie Roseman, and I thought it was really interesting the way that he handled the press conference. I thought it was interesting that him and Sirianni came out together in the press conference. I thought it was really interesting that when it came to answering questions, there were times where Howie Roseman butted in and said, Nick, I'll answer this question. Let me answer a few questions here. As you saw Nick Sirianni stumble and, fumble his way through some of these questions that were fair. we saw glimpses of this when he first was introduced as the head coach in Philadelphia. That press conference, his introductory press conference, was something I've never seen before. And when we were riding high, when you're winning games, and when you're rolling, you saw how he carried himself at the podium. Chest out, more confident, assured of himself. And then after this game, after this slid, even in the midst of the slide, he regressed and regressed and regressed into what we saw his first day on the job. That doesn't mean he can't coach, because I don't think he's necessarily a terrible coach. I think he should have been gone, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. Not really. It's more of a discussion now. I found it interesting that Howie Roseman decided to keep him on board. And it was all about like, hey, it's really tough to get to the playoffs 3 straight years, get to a Super Bowl, have 10 plus wins the past 2 years, all that good stuff. We know that Sirianni, in terms of locker room dynamics, veterans seem to like him. A lot of the players seem to like Sirianni as a guy, and they feel like they can play for him. And the organization seems to have trust in Sirianni. Trust. I'm putting air quotes on that. Trust in Sirianni. Because to me, this doesn't seem like trust in Sirianni. This more seems like Howie Roseman taking the steering wheel of this team and making sure everybody understands that this is not Nick Sirianni's football team. This is my baby. This is my team. I'm the head honcho. I'm the guy. I'm the top of the food chain here in Philadelphia. And I think this press conference, he wanted to remind everybody exactly who's in control here. Now, to me, I am not a fan of front office guys meddling in with football affairs when it comes to locker room dynamics, game planning, who to start, who to fire, all that stuff. Leave that to the coaching, leave that to the players, leave that to the guys with the boots on the ground. This dynamic in Philadelphia is super, super interesting. Now, me as a fan, gives me cause to pause as to what the expectations of this team could be over the next few years. If you're on the outside looking in, just as a spectator of sports, what an interesting dynamic this is in Philadelphia. Howie Roseman is the head of the food chain here. Part of the team that won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 52. He orchestrated that team. He constructed that team. He is the reason why Philadelphia has a Super Bowl title in 2017. Strips that team down, fires Doug Peterson, brings in Sirianni, and gets back to a Super Bowl again, and went shot for shot with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce. And I think after that Super Bowl, and the way we looked, this is just me. This is my opinion. I'm not reporting this. This is just my speculation. To me, it feels like Howie Roseman is sitting there and he's like, this team goes as far as I go. And I need someone in the locker room, someone on the field who I can influence, who I can control. And if you listen to the way Sirianni has orchestrated himself when asked tough questions, when he is not on his high horse, when he's not necessarily front running, he seems like a really, really nice guy, really easygoing. He's actually down to earth, but he's also somebody who's not going to take the bull by the horns and take control. And the more and more you look into the Philadelphia Eagles organization, the more you look at some of the moves that they make, the player acquisitions, all the things that they have done, while it translates to a lot of times good product on the field outside of this 7-game slide and just throughout the year this year, it translates into good stuff, but it also reeks of something that just seems odd. Strong personalities in Philadelphia is what we are known for as players. And there's only a few in Philadelphia right now who are like outgoing and braggadocious and stuff. It seems to me Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are looking for a coaching staff who they can control. And if you notice how they even handled Jalen Hurts, there have been reports about how they've shielded him, or he's been less accessible to everybody in the locker room. To me, I don't think that's on purpose. That could be Jalen Hurts' problem because he got $250 million. And I have a saying that I tell a lot of my friends, show me a QB, show me a quarterback, and I'll show you an asshole. That's kind of like my opinion of quarterbacks. And I think you have to be like that in order to be a great QB. But his ego could be a little inflated. The stoic personality is something that could seem standoffish to teammates. And there have also been reports in the past where the Eagles organization, top guys in the organization, felt like Jalen Hurts can be a little bit more outgoing with his teammates. That he should be more outgoing with his teammates. All of that seems like Howie wants to have this fully in control, and he wants everybody to know. We don't win because of the coaching. We don't win because of players. We win because of me. That's what that sounds like to me. I could sound like a jackass. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm totally off. Maybe this is what every GM sounds like. But this team, what it seems like, Howie Roseman in particular, seems like he cares about only a few things before winning. Total control, saving/making money, and then after that, building a winner, making the right hires to make sure you can maximize the roster. That's what I picked up from that Eagles press conference. That's what I felt like watching Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni speak on the podium today. It seemed odd. The dynamic seemed weird. I don't know what to make of it. I don't. And the problem is, Howie Roseman is one of the sharper GMs in football. He is. I think he's number 2 behind Brett Veach in Kansas City. And here's the thing. Howie Roseman is a smart guy. He knows it and wants to make sure that you good and damn well know that I'm the smartest guy in the room. That's what that comes across like. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, that's not my decision to say. But it certainly does explain some of the weird stuff to me that has been going on with this team over this past year. And what does that mean for us going forward? We shall see. But I think this might be the dynamics that exist here in Philadelphia. You're going to see them change significantly over the next few years. To me, I don't even think Howie Roseman had plans for this year. He's been planning for the future this whole time, in my opinion. Trying to get a youth movement going here in Philadelphia. That failed. Now they're going complete shifting gears to bringing in coaches who I think are not going to become great head coaches and thus get stuck as coordinators like a Vic Fangio. That's why you hear rumors about Frank Reich being the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. That's why you hear guys like a Cliff Kingsbury being interviewed. Guys who have experience as head coaches and not necessarily a great track record. Guys who are going to stay in the building. Guys who they can have influence over. It's why you don't see necessarily a guy like Eric Bieniemy being interviewed by Philadelphia. A guy like Denard Wilson being interviewed by Philadelphia. Hell, it's probably why Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was let go by Philadelphia. And why a guy like James Bradbury was brought back. Because you could tell Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, very opinionated, strong personality, has a lot of swagger on defense, and was very adamant on when Philadelphia didn't bring in Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator last offseason. Shipped him out of town. Denard Wilson had a very strong personality, wanted the DC job. Sirianni and Howie Roseman told him, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. It's why they love a guy like Jalen Hurts. It's also probably why they got rid of a guy like Doug Peterson a few years ago, even though I felt that firing was justified. But again, if the objective for Howie Roseman is to maintain control, absolute control of this football team, then any strong personality in the coaching department, it seems to me like he doesn't want that in the building. And Nick Sirianni, as bombastic, as braggadocious, as audacious as he is when he's winning, everybody in that locker room knows he's not necessarily the top alpha. That honor belongs to Howie Roseman. Hey, you got through a full episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, hit the like and subscribe button below. You can also check us out on Instagram at the Riding the Bench podcast with a K instead of C in the word podcast. And also check us out on audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. All of that is in the description below. Please come back next time for the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Thanks for listening.